Our culture is obsessed with knowing. We spend hours listening to podcasts, we deify thought daughters, we build altars for commentators, and we philosophize with video essayists. Search engines delude us into thinking that knowledge is one click away. TikTok swears it can make us an expert in 60 seconds or less. Heavy on the less. To know is to be alive. I think, therefore I am. As evidenced by years of our immortal exertion, of complicated and youngifying beauty routines backdropped by vampiric blood sacrifices, it is clear that we want to, really need to, stay alive forever. The think piece is how we get there. While social media has garbled this discipline with negative connotation, think pieces predate the internet. The term refers to a piece of writing, usually physical but now digital, that features thoughts of some kind. These thoughts are usually personal, opinionated, and thought-provoking in of themselves. Online, this discipline has become extremely controversial, so much so that in the past few weeks, netizens have declared war on think pieces. Within a TikTok niche known informally as Yap Talk, creators have been the target of a weeks-long dogpile. Accounts have been banned due to mass reporting, and comment sections have been filled with insults and accusations. The explanations for this harassment vary. Some people claim they're doing it to punish creators for so-called bad takes, and others admit that they're doing it just because they're tired of think pieces and want yappers off the app. It's very interesting, but it's not new. 2 years ago, I made a video essay about video essays, complete with the scariest makeup choice of my modern career. The era of the critic was made to trace the transformation of the video essay genre, but more than that, it was made to interrogate bias. Not only the bias we have towards think pieces in general, but also our bias towards race and class, and how white supremacist elitism prevents us from earnestly engaging with diverse content. While my original critique still stands, I find that our current war on think pieces feels slightly different. Audiences are engaging with think pieces. The point is, they're still not satisfied. While there have been valid concerns recently raised about the community, specifically in terms of accuracy and plagiarism, most popular criticisms of the digital think piece is an undigested, confusing drama. Think pieces are unoriginal and shallow. No one knows how to write a real essay anymore. Constant discourse is unnecessary and exhausting. Give us something more profound than regurgitated Twitter takes. No, stop talking altogether. Let's go back to posting fun videos and creating dances on TikTok. Well, you better get to it because the United States is on borrowed time. My issue with popular think piece criticism is that a lot of it is just as half-baked as it accuses the genre of being. Critics tend to focus on subjective ideals of intelligence and profundity, and they prove quite frequently that they don't have a good grasp of the subject that they attempt to denounce. What's worse is that there are issues with the digital think piece, criticisms that are more robust than matters of taste. Issues related to commodification, trend cycles, business, and money. Instead of focusing on elitist ideals, we would do better to question what it means to create art under capitalism, and expose how the qualities of such a system leads to the degradation of an otherwise beautiful and meaningful discipline. Let's look closer. This portion of the video is sponsored by Midas Merge. Midas Merge is a cozy Merge 3 game with a twist. As a player, you get to team up with King Midas and Queen Leah in order to revive the Gardens of Gold, which are under the shadow of Nyx, the goddess of night. Your job is to help illuminate the realm and thwart Nyx's mayhem by brightening the garden and freeing its cute inhabitants. Speaking of cute, this is Weaver, and she's a Globie. She looks a lot actually like my cat, a little bit. Her big eyes, her body formation. In Midas Merge, you can discover and nurture cute creatures just like Weaver. These creatures help you with trying to heal the garden. You can even hatch and evolve them by merging items in the game. This is Sparkle Toots. He's a level 1 plume squirrel, and he's very demure. And this is Gary. He's a level 3 plume squirrel. Gary has a bit more swag to him. He's very flashy, he's very confident. Why am I giving them personalities? Also, for the month of December, Midas Merge will feature winter gardens full of holiday magic. From December 5th to December 29th, players can earn seasonal creatures like the winter reindeer and the rare polar bear. You also have the opportunity to unlock festive prize boxes to enhance your main garden. Midas Merge is free to download with no ad interruptions, so you can have endless fun. Make sure to download Midas Merge now and be among the first 100 people to use my link or QR code to gain a personalized winter creature, a level 1 reindeer with my name. That's so cute. Join the adventure and add this adorable friend to your garden today. Now, let's get on to the video. Hello, my name is Shania. I'm a writer and visualist who focuses on pop culture and other silly internet happenings. Something you may not know about me is that I went to college. I first read Michael Kimmel's book, Angry White Men, when I was in college, meaning that the creature is 3 seconds alive and already has a better college education than I do with none of the debt. I took a rhetoric course in college. College. I mean, I never talk about it. I obtained my associate's degree at 18 by way of being dual enrolled during high school. Thereafter, I attended university and graduated with a bachelor's in English. I also had pink hair. All of that is to say that I'm familiar with essay writing. It was my favorite part about being an academic. I loved the toughness of coming up with literary interpretations and the trial and error of working through complex thought. Moreover, because I was an English major, I saw firsthand how critical thinking and speech is devalued. There's a systematic silence placed upon our culture, where talking has literally become cheap. During the TikTok think piece war, the term commoners was constantly used as an insult against creators who partook in yapping. This sort of language is steeped in class relations and implies that those without wealth or status are the ones partaking in so-called cheap labor, that is, talking and expressing online. In the world at large, we see this denigration of speech play out in other ways, depending on one's social position. Chappell Roan, Rachel Ziegler, and Megan Thee Stallion have all been the target of harassment, bullying, and shaming just because they dare to speak up. Generally, the act of speaking is considered a primal urge, one we attempt to learn and even disseminate as children. And so our culture considers it a non-skill. Our devaluing of speech is strengthened when people speak informally, as they often do in video think pieces. I mean, this is the internet. We're among peers, and so most of us don't feel the need to speak like we're in Pride and Prejudice.
Miss Bennett, I warn you, I'm not to be trifled with.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
The internet also tends to disparage unplanned speech. Think of our reaction to podcasts and Twitch streamers. While posting your every unvetted thought on the internet can get really evil really fast, it would be ignorant to say that spontaneity in speech can't create beautiful, nuanced discussions. And yet, we frequently call creators within this niche, within this unplanned niche, we frequently call them lazy or undeserving. More than anything, we believe that talking is done for the sake of itself, an aimless, contentless endeavor better kept off the internet. People claim that yappers on TikTok are unproductive, that their takes are boring and unoriginal, and a lot of creators who are being targeted happen to be Black, and netizens have resorted to calling them classless bonnet bandits, who will never succeed as real content creators. Starting to feel like yapper is said with a hard ER. Think piece critics who devalue the art of speaking really underestimate the amount of skill needed to excel in this discipline, especially on TikTok, where most users have the attention span of a pile of dirt. In order to keep people invested, you have to have charisma, you have to be interesting, and what you say and how you say it has to resonate with other people. You have to be able to incite something in your audience that has nothing to do with envy or consumption, which is the main goal of traditional influencers. Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying that everything a yapper says on the internet is correct, moral, or even good. Sometimes people are weird. And also, TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube are the evil triangle of mind death, while Twitter is the magnet in the center that pulls entire civilizations down to their knees like the fucking Bermuda. I hate it here. In that way, speaking on its own isn't inherently revolutionary. At a certain point, the content of the speech does need to be considered, especially if it's discriminatory. From here on out, I'm going to focus on video essays just because that's my specific profession, but really what I'm saying can be applied liberally. In the last few years, especially as the community moves out of its beloved RedTube era, criticism of the video essay has become frequent. The loudest feedback asserts that this newer generation struggles with producing real essays. Remember when YouTubers wrote an essay and performed it in front of the camera? I miss those days. People without essay writing training should not be allowed to make video essays. Everything is just so surface level. Essays are supposed to be profound, not to mention original. I mean, essays cover the same topics. Oh, you would hate academia. That's the beating a topic into the ground factory. Anyways, this criticism is interesting. I mean, what makes something a real essay anyways? The term essay refers to a genre of writing, meaning that there are many different ways to write an essay. There's narrative essays, expository essays, personal essays, and the one we're most familiar with, the argumentative essay. This latter work is what we're assigned the most in school. And it's the first thing that comes to mind for most people when they hear the word essay. But academic papers are a mere dot in the vast constellation of the essay universe. Laurent Mailhot considers the genre to be vaguely defined and poorly situated. And this is because no one can agree upon a precise definition. We know that the term stems from the French essays, meaning attempt or trial. This in turn is influenced by the Latin verb exigere, meaning to examine, test, or to literally drive out. We also know that the genre was named by a French philosopher, Montaigne, who had a massively gigantic forehead. Montaigne created the essay as a tentative way to explore his thoughts, which makes sense given the etymology. The essay is an attempt or trial in literature. Everything else we know about it is unclear. There's your standard definitions like short pieces of writing or interpretive literary compositions, but what the hell does that mean? That description can be applied to literally anything. Tweets, articles, letters, diary entries. In fact, the essay genre is so poorly situated, as Mailhot describes it, that the label gets thrown around willy-nilly, leading to division among scholars. Mailhot, for instance, considers manifestos, memoirs, and even eyewitness reports as types of essays, which seems super duper wrong. Francis Bacon considered the Epistles of Seneca a collection of essays, even though they were written in letter form. And this got him figuratively hung, drawn, and quartered by other scholars. Even John Locke's An Essay Concerning Human Understanding is heavily debated, despite the word essay literally appearing in the title. In an effort to clear up this confusion, we'll use Edmund William Goss's definition. He believes that an essay is a composition of moderate length, usually in prose, which deals in an easy, cursory way with the external conditions of a subject and, in strictness, only as it affects the writer. Whatever that means. So, in other words, essays are a piece of writing, usually short in length, that deal with analysis and introspection of some kind. This last part is what scholars tend to agree on the most, actually. Essays are meant to explore thought, opinion, and the human condition, often through a personal lens. They can't shy away from asking tough questions. Whether these questions are actually answered at the end of the essay doesn't really matter. The very act of asking is the bread and butter of the genre. Think back to the etymology. An essay is an attempt or trial, not a solution. Furthermore, as Goss explains, essays need to be the result of deep meditation. You have to be in your room under pitch black darkness, keyboard hot and ready, really pondering shit. The point is to present your audience with a loose thread that was once, before you got a hold of it, a tangled knot. Essay writing is the act of pointing a mirror at the world and declaring, here is the problem of being alive. This gives us a better understanding of what a real essay is. Even though it's still kind of vague, we understand it to be a composition that explores humanity. So let's look at an example. CinemaSins is technically a film critic, regardless of their reputation. And film criticism is one of the early manifestations of the YouTube video essay. Think of Every Frame a Painting and Lindsay Ellis. Films also happen to be yet another mirror to our culture. Don't know why my voice cracked, but but based on our understanding of essays, CinemaSins would not be considered a video essayist. On the other hand, Broe Deschanel, another media critic, would be considered a video essayist. CinemaSins makes videos strictly pointing out flaws. Broe attempts to trace the depth of those flaws back to humanity. Therefore, for something to be essayistic, it has to be anthropological in nature. Essays attempt to analyze everything they can about humanity, from love to politics to race to pastimes, history and gender and feminism. It doesn't have to be political per se, but it must be well versed in human culture. James Baldwin and Audre Lorde are great examples of essay writers. They don't produce traditionally academic papers. They produce pieces of writing that attempt to know and attempt to share that knowing with their audiences. With all of this in mind, it's clear to me that a large portion of essays on YouTube are real essays, regardless of whether they are new generation or from the BreadTube days. These two eras are different, but that's because essays are ever changing. It's their nature, by way of being the result of personal experience and culture. This revelation calls into question aspects of popular think piece criticism. If a critic doesn't know what makes something essayistic, how can they determine that modern creators are ruining the genre? Let's look into further critiques, specifically those that state that the think piece lacks intelligence, originality, and depth. So let's just imagine for a second that these concepts aren't figments of our subjective imagination. Nowhere in my citations for this video or my last video on the subject do scholars list any of these as key requirements for the genre. While Goss does mention profound meditation, he more so means that essays can't be the result of undigested thought. You have to think intensely or deeply about a subject before you write about it. He isn't saying that you have to write something deep. How would you even begin to determine the depth, intelligence, or originality of something anyways? These concepts are partly abstract and chiefly unaccountable. No two people can agree on what makes something smart or what makes something deep. I mean, I find value in Twilight. I think it's interesting. There's even aspects of the series that I find insightful. Sorry. I mean that. But there's about 1 billion other people on the planet who would want me fucking dead for thinking that. As a culture, we tend to treat personal taste as a litmus test for the quality of something. If I like something, that must make it intelligent because I'm intelligent, even if I'm too humble or shy to admit that. If I don't like something, that must mean that it's not deep because I'm deep. Obviously, taste isn't just about subjectivity. There's a whole other side of it that depends on technical skill. Twilight's value is subjective because no one person can determine whether it's inherently good or inherently bad. But writing is still a discipline, and it features various rules of structure, pacing, and grammar. It's possible to interrogate Twilight's goodness because it lacks, like all three of those qualities. However, originality, intelligence, and depth aren't technical rules. You can't determine them in a way that counts, and so you wouldn't find them in a style manual or a manual workshop. There are things you can do to achieve standardized concepts of intelligence, like reading and learning, but you can't measure intelligence in a way that remains fixed and referenceable. The same goes for depth. There are millions of people on this platform, all with different experiences and levels of understanding. Unlike formal education, there are no tiers to the internet. There are no advanced classes or general education courses. A college-educated person watches the same video as someone who isn't a college graduate or someone who's still in high school. Each of these people can learn something new from the same content. or they can each believe that the creator is insightful, wise, or downright obtuse. What's deep to one viewer won't be deep to another. What's accessible to one person will inevitably be obscure to someone else. And this doesn't just apply to the audience. Creators also exist at different intersections of thought. Furthermore, how we determine these things often float back towards supremacy and elitism. Discourse about profoundness often becomes discourse about intellect, and discourse about intellect inevitably falls into questions about who gets to have knowledge and share it with the world. History has shown us that the answer to this is largely dependent upon social position. Black people, indigenous people, women, disabled people, these are a few different social identities who have been systematically determined too unintelligent to exist. It's a slippery slope, one that popular criticisms of think pieces tend to fall into with enthusiasm. Popular criticisms of the video essay attempt to apply academic standards where it makes no sense to. And they're strict as hell. They want a scholarly paper, double-spaced in Times New Roman 12-point font, turned into their desk by 11:59 p.m. tonight! If you got a hoodie, take it off!
Take your laptops and electronics out the bag. If you got a hoodie on, take it off! Take it off!
As we already found out, essays are not wholly determined by academic scales of value. There seems to be a disconnect between what popular critics want from the genre and what the genre actually attempts to do. There are different rules to a video essay, different expectations of pace, language, and presentation. Good essayists tend to depart from traditional academic essays in some capacity, partially for artistic integrity, but also because you have to change something about the essay for it to work in video form. You can't hold video essays to the same standards as an academic essay, because it's not an academic essay. It's an entirely new niche. Some creators who I have spoken to and who I have watched don't even consider the video essay an essay at all. Some of them almost think of video essays as a form of journalism, and Every Frame a Painting considers video essays to be films rather than essays at all. The concept of originality is slightly more concrete than depth or intelligence. Obviously, the antithesis of being original is when your script lights up like a Christmas tree in a H-bomb video. Now that's what I like to call plagiarism. However, critics of think pieces are not referring to plagiarism when they invoke originality. They hate it when two creators cover the same topic. That's not plagiarism, that's a normal human conversation. One could argue that originality refers to a fresh insight on a topic, which, that's fair, but even the things you think are fresh have already been said before. On a planet billions of years old, nothing is inherently unique. The human condition is a finite resource. There's only so many ways that you can question and unearth the politics of being alive. How else are we able to read a novel or an essay from 50 to 100 years ago and recognize our own life pressed between the pages? Franz Kafka died in 1924, a century ago. And yet when I come across clippings of his diary entries, I almost feel like I'm reading mine. It should be beautiful, knowing another person without having to meet them. It's a testament to humanity, of being alive on an ancient planet. I have this theory that because our culture is so hyper-individualistic, we believe that relating to or mirroring another person makes us flawed. Not in terms of plagiarism, certainly, but in terms of thematic similarities. The originality argument also doesn't work because the essay is made to be referential. Since essays are meant to be an autopsy of humanity, George Lukács notes, it always speaks of something which already possesses a form, or at best, of something which has already existed. It is therefore in its nature not to bring up new things from the vacuum of nothingness, but to confer a new organization of things which have already, at a given moment, contained life. What is being human if not learning new ways to say the same thing over and over again? Not inventing new words or new languages, but rearranging the words you already know. The words that have already been placed upon your tongue by loved ones, beloved authors, entire communities. Ho, is you not sentimental? This is applicable to every think piece, regardless of platform. For the most part, creators are not regurgitating the same exact argument word for word. If anything, it may feel that way on TikTok because you are under constant surveillance by a sophisticated algorithm and are therefore being fed the same thematic videos. That has less to do with creator originality and more to do with the platform that's spying on you and trying to steal all your money and attention. So, instead of focusing on fantasies of taste and elitism, we should focus our argument on something a bit more tangible. Because critics are right. There is something afoot in this bitch. Think pieces do feel dramatically overdone to the point of exhaustion. But all the critiques I've seen on the subject tend to stop there. They never attempt to follow up or ask why. Why does the genre potentially lack depth? Why do think pieces feel so wrong lately? Why are they so exhausting? Not only to consume, but to create. So I'm not going to talk much about this in the video, but I think another partial reason for our villainization of yapping stems from our culture's attempted return to blissful ignorance, right? Especially as we come off the back of various civil rights demonstrations. I think people are feeling overstimulated by the sort of deluge of information and news we're getting on the internet, and they don't know how to engage with it in a full and meaningful way, and so they outright reject it. Think of the friend that's too woke meme and how it's used online nowadays in response to things that are very basic level humanity, like talking about race or gender or such and such. And while I think this is an interesting element of the conversation, I wouldn't say that it's wholly indicative of the issue, especially because our hatred for think pieces are definitely not new. I would argue not about originality or intelligence, but about the politics of business and money. The video think piece has been commodified, especially since they have become so popular in the last decade. Video essays and TikTok yapping isn't just a form of communication. It's a form of content, a commodity even. Karl Marx defines commodities as external objects whose qualities satisfy some type of human need. These trends can be essential, like food, or they can be non-essential, like that ugly tire tread skirt from a few years back. The point is, we extract values from these objects by way of using them. This is called use value. It's not very not very poetic, but in terms of video essays, the value we extract from them are aesthetic and informational. Now, you might be thinking that video essays aren't commodities. These are free. You don't pay money to watch these. And you're right. You don't give me money. Give me all your fucking money. Just kidding. You actually do pay me with your attention, and I steal bits and pieces of your soul the longer you stay glued to your screen, and then YouTube rewards me by paying me money. So, other than that, completely free. But seriously, it's hard to imagine art or knowledge as a commodity. I've made multiple videos attempting to detach myself from that very language, and for good reason. I find myself to be inextricable from my art. I'm not a disembodied voice. Most of you know my name, and if you're watching this video, you know what I look like. You probably even know more about me than I'm comfortable with you knowing. If you view my art as a product, you'll eventually start viewing me as one too. And I don't want to get lost in that. Generally, people find it impossible to commodify art. Art comes from the heart, and the heart doesn't know anything about money. Unless, of course, we're talking about, the 40,000 things that cost money and that my heart desires. But the abstractness of art, the humanness and beauty of it, sits at odds with ideas of profit and exploitation. There comes a point when art is made not for the purpose of its use value, but instead for the sake of profit. We see this especially with giant corporations, a la Disney. They're committed to the grandiloquence of assembly line whimsy. They don't care how you feel about their products or their films or their parks, or if these products meet some subjective standard of goodness. They care about cold hard cash. I mean, how else are they going to pay the rent for the cryogenic pod where they keep Walt's head? This can happen on a smaller scale with think pieces. Social media has made a promise to its users that it can change your life literally overnight. All it takes is one viral video, one sleepless shift, one well-placed rock on a mountain of others. And so naturally, if that's what you're seeking, and most people apparently are, then you're going to achieve it by any means. You're going to pump your videos with viral material. You're going to work through the night, delirious with desire, and you're going to place 1,000,001 rocks up on that mountain. Think pieces are so popular right now that it wouldn't surprise me if drifting content creators switched over to this niche in order to cash in. Perhaps they try on the aesthetics and the politics of the medium without fully committing to it, leading to work that feels rushed or apathetic. I can especially see this happening on platforms like TikTok, where fast turnaround breeds passive, uncanny posts. If a topic gains teeth and everyone's talking about it, you're going to feel inclined to put your thoughts upon that mountain of rocks, even if you don't want to, or even if you have nothing to add really to the conversation. And this is prominent not only on TikTok and not only among trend hoppers, for lack of a better word, but for me as well. Sometimes a video is absolutely a check, and I know saying that might call into question my passion or my artistic intent, but there are times where I feel most happy creating nothing. There are times where I know for a fact that I would create better art if I just stopped creating for a while. But I have to treat this channel like a business. I pay taxes for it. I have to keep an eye on my numbers. I have to maximize my growth at every turn. And so I don't give myself time off. Like, I've been burnt out for the past 3 months. It's that goddamn manosphere video. But I've been trucking on. Without a doubt, this leads to a certain kind of degradation in quality, by my own standards. I wouldn't say my work is bad, but sometimes I imagine how much better it could be if I got to spend more time with each video, more time on the script, on the research. I post once a month, meaning that I have to come up with a video concept, research it, write a script, go through about 1 billion drafts, film, edit the video, work on the sponsor, design 1 billion thumbnails just in case YouTube wants to kill me, and then post that video all within 4 weeks. And then on top of that, YouTube sometimes refuses to push my content out to wider audiences. It takes 45% of my earnings every month and then spits on me every time I open my analytics. Hello? Sometimes I work on multiple videos at once, and if I'm not doing that, I'm struggling to come up with a video topic worth discussing for 30 goddamn minutes. Sometimes I even shy away from doing video topics that I really want to do because I'm afraid of it just not performing well. I mean, how the hell is this a safe space to create art? This focus on rapid and constant production is a symptom of capitalism. And capitalism, as we have learned, breeds a sick sort of mangled quality to a work that can't be filtered out with mere style. Capitalism breeds error, it breeds inaccuracy, it breeds exhaustion. This rat race mentality negatively impacts the think piece niche because people are rushing to give undigested thoughts on topics that they don't actually care about. It leads to an overproduction of content where people post non-stop in order to meet certain algorithmic quotas. The common answer to this issue is just get a real job and post less. Preserve your integrity of your art. But that does nothing to actually solve the problem. Someone working 30 or 40 hours, if not more, a week just to stay afloat in a country choking on its own inflated waste is not going to have the passion or the energy to create a video essay, or any art at all for that matter. They're being sucked dry of their passions and their motivations. That isn't to say that working class people aren't artists, because certainly they are. It's more to say that working class people make art in spite of their exploitation, not because their exploitation gives them time and energy to do it. Telling people to post less is telling them to separate their art from their livelihood, which at times is impossible. It's almost a privileged take. It supports the notion that only the few elite who have the wealth to secure themselves have the right to create art or disseminate their voices. And that's kind of the problem. It goes back to the cycle. I wish there was a fruitful answer to this dilemma. I wish we could unionize social media jobs. I wish digital think pieces had a peer review system. And just as well, I wish eternal life for the thinkers, the yappers, and the artists. It has been probably the best year for my channel in terms of what I've done. It's been a beautiful year of creating, and I just want to thank you for sticking around with me, and I hope to see you in 2025. Bye.